Charles Finn, editor of Hide as a Journal, and welcome to the third in our series of what we're calling In the Time of COVID. Today I'm going to be joined by three of our visual artists from past issues, the pastel artist Bobbie McKibbin, the landscape photographer Barbara Michelman, and the mixed media abstract artist Karen Shimoda. So once again, just sit back, be a fly on the wall, and enjoy what these three smart and pretty talented people have to say about what they're doing right now, their work, and the work of artists in general during a time of crisis. So I hope you enjoy. All right, hello again. We're here with Bobbie, Karen, and Barbara, our featured artists today. These are all the three visual artists I mentioned in the introduction. So how's everyone doing?
Good.
Okay.
Good. All right.
Different, but
yeah, good to see you.
good to see you too.
So, well, Bobbie, going to start with you because we were talking just a couple of days ago, sort of about the role of the artist during crisis, and we had sort of mentioned that artists had been through not something similar, but coming out of World War II, what were they going to do with their art then?
Right. I had mentioned a book that I had recently read called Ninth Street Women by Mary Gabriel.
Yep, here it is.
A visual aid, I like that. Yes, indeed. Have you read it, Karen?
I finished it now that I have time. It took a while, but
Right. So of course, in the coming out of the Depression, and then of course the Second World War, the artists in New York were confronted with the idea of how do they continue to paint? Do they paint the same way that they did before the Depression and before the war? And for many of them, I think that helped drive them to this new language of abstract expressionism, and of course the influx of European minds, artists and philosophers and so forth, helped really get that stew going in terms of what they were thinking about. So Karen, what are your thoughts after just finishing the book?
well, I have always liked abstract expressionism, and that's what I do. So it was interesting to read how involved they were with what was going on at the time, how in tune they were with the environment. And the book was great because it provided a lot of historical background from, what was happening in the war and then in Europe and the Holocaust and such.
Yes.
But it did make me think, well, what am I doing? Or what could I be doing in times like this? But I was inspired by them. I was, they were admirable. I thought there was a lot of talk about the men that they were involved with. It could have been more about the women, but it was about 5 particular female abstract expressionist artists.
Right.
I'm going to bring up just one piece of yours there, Karen, that I pulled off your website.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just one example of what I've seen you do.
Karen, how recent is that? A recent piece?
It's very recent. I think I finished it this year, the beginning of this year. It's called Fault Line. And I just submitted it to a juried show called The Left Coast, and things that represent the left coast of the United States. And I was inspired by Point Reyes National Seashore visits I've had there. And then the fact that there's the San Andreas Fault separates the Point Reyes Peninsula from the mainland coastline. And
what's the scale of that painting?
It's 36-inch square. It's the last of 5 in a series that I had done of 36-inch square nature-inspired landscapes. So yeah, that.
How about you, Barbara? You're stuck inside. You're not out shooting big landscapes right now like you often do.
No, I'm not. But I have been visiting them through my images. And what's interesting is I've sort of moved into a lot of color right now because I am stuck inside. And I've been posting a series, It's Still a Beautiful World, and I get to travel with my images. I've been posting from all the places that I've been over the years, and it's very satisfying because it reminds.
And they're very refreshing to see.
Thank you. Yeah, because we are pretty much locked inside. Other than that, this day, it's funny. I kind of came to peace with all of it. I figured this day is going to pass, and it's funny. My daughter asked me, when all of this first happened, she said, "Well, why don't you go out and do a series outside about what it looks like now that there's nobody on the streets?" And I tried. My camera didn't want to go there. Just wasn't what really resonated with me. I know we are where we are, but and then I remembered reading years ago a story about Monet when in his last years at Giverny, and he could hear the guns because he was in Normandy, and he could hear the guns, not very far from his house. And what did he do? He just kept on painting. And I kind of think of that when I think about what my work is about, which is really to talk about not just landscape as a pretty subject, but landscape because of what the land represents as the foundation of what this life is about. And, so I did that series on the aftermath of the fires because those were landscapes, and it was another kind of landscape because of what we've been up to.
Yeah, wish I had thought to get a couple of those ready.
Yeah, they're on my website.
Ones you did.
Yeah.
I got one here just to share, just so people can kind of see a little bit of what you do, but it's a one you
Oh, yeah, that's a Three Forks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a beaver right down below there, too, poking his head out. I don't think that shot has him in there, but he was there. He kept, poking his head up because I was standing right on the edge. Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. When I look at these photos, they take me back not just to the place, but the experience and the things and that I've encountered along the way. And so there's a lot of memory involved in each one of these images for me.
Mm.
That's a good point, I think, because I've been looking through all my shots of Yellowstone, and I've been over to Yellowstone the last 2 falls, photographing and drawing, and looking at them again. It is sort of a wonderful time to reflect on what happened before COVID-19, and then there's this kind of continuum. For me, I'm not the kind of artist, I don't think my work is going to change that much because of COVID-19. And part of me says, really? And I go, yeah, because I've always wanted to record how extraordinary the planet is, how amazing the world is. And maybe we need that just as much, and we need that maybe more now than ever. Barbara, you were talking about Monet. Monet continued to paint his water lilies, even though the war was maybe just 30 kilometers away. And he did not, and of course he was an older artist by that time. He had an amazing body of work. And I feel like, I guess I don't totally know the answer. It's too early in terms of what may happen with our work or my work. I have a need. I think I'm going to grab my French easel and I'm going to go out. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky living in Western Montana because I live in the country and I can be outside. And I think, so much of my work has been photo driven over the last number of years, but I feel the need to maybe be outside and to actually be in nature and work from it directly. So I think that's going to be the big shift or the big change for me.
Right. It's interesting. That's
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just was throwing that one up. Bobbie is our cover girl, or was, what do you like to say? I think that was back from
Yeah,
2011.
right.
But that was done off a photograph, right?
It was.
Right. And then you do have some, like you said, you were working more
Plein air.
Plein air. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I interrupted you, Karen. You're about to say
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the three of us, landscape is, nature is what inspires us.
Right.
Mine happens to be an abstraction, but it often comes from, it certainly comes from places I've been. If people remember when I had the show at the Missoula Art Museum, the field note show, that was all inspired by the Pacific Northwest, the trails and the trees and such. That won't change. I think before this, my focus was climate change, and that will still be, we're all interested in that, wanting to make people be aware of and pay attention to the fact that the climate is changing our world for now and for future generations. So my work, I wouldn't say it's activist work by any means. It's just reminding people of the beauty of the colors and the patterns and the structures of nature.
Yeah.
But I was in a studio. I live in Berkeley. I had, or partly have, a studio in Oakland, which I can't go to anymore. But I was in the studio more than I was outside. So now I'm thinking, I have to stop the studio. I have to move out of the studio and bring everything home and try to work with the space I have at home as my studio, which means I won't be able to work large for a while. But maybe being at home will allow me to be, once all of this is over and we can be outside, maybe I'll get out more. Mm-hmm. I feel like I was missing that. I was out a lot in Portland when I lived in Portland, but here in the Bay Area, I haven't taken advantage of the natural environment. I took more advantage of being in my studio. So I think one advantage to leaving the studio and working from home will be that maybe I'll be out in the natural environment more, and we'll see how that continues to inspire my work. But the biggest change will be I won't be able to work large anytime soon. The other point is I live with my daughter and her family and my two little granddaughters, so that there's a certain, at this particular point in time, there's a lot of family responsibility. We all have to pitch in and work on keeping us all healthy and
Right.
sane together. So I haven't really I've been doing more reading than art making. So I think that's good because it will allow certain things to sink in. And then when my space is organized and I'm ready to get back into my work, we'll see where it goes. Like Bobbie said, she's not sure exactly what's going to change, but I'm not sure either, and I look forward to change.
One thing that I worry about in the future, or that I'm concerned about, is not so much the making of the art, because I think all of us have made art our entire lives, and that will continue. When I'm starting to sort of process and mourn is going to see work and showing our work. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to have a show in Missoula in July, and perhaps the work will be delivered to the gallery, but where's the audience? And I think all visual artists, many of us are very, very interested in making special things, special objects, things that need to really be seen. Not even like online, you don't get the scale, you don't get the textures. There's so much that you don't get when it's sort of secondhand. There's nothing like seeing artwork up close and personal. And I do worry about venues in terms of where is that leading? And I especially worry, of course, about small galleries. Will they be able to survive? The gallery business is so so difficult already. And I would hate that the new norm would be that we view things online and we purchase things online and we interact that way and so forth, because I think viewing objects in the flesh is really, really, really special and important.
And if things are online, will as many people be looking for art as people going to galleries now? It's a thing to do, it's special, but if it's just online, are we going to lose a large audience?
I think we lose not just the audience, we lose a piece of ourselves when we step into a cyber world and that becomes the sum of the way we operate. It removes us how many more steps from a kind of common humanity that when we were, in social exchange is very different. Because whether you're going out into nature or you're in a restaurant having a meal or with friends or in a gallery, it's an event and there's something that happens in the human exchange that the more we step back from it, we're here a lot, but something in the human heart tends to be diminished, I think.
And Barbara, what's interesting about that is, if I agree completely with what you just said, and if we're in isolation for an extended period, what might that do? This is a question for us all. What might that do to even our work then? Because our work is a reflection of our lives.
Well, it certainly does raise questions. And I do find on my best days here, I'm sort of driven deeper into myself, and I'm not sure that's a bad thing. And part of it is I do get out. I'm not just here. I don't have social interaction outside, but I am outside. I am able to ride my bike, and when I go by, I can still smell the blossoms as I go cruising by, or the bread baking in the bakery that's near me. So there's something in being in the the sensory part of life that is missing. I mean, I get to see everybody, and I think that's great, but it's different. It's different than when we're all together in person.
Right.
This is not a bad alternative, but I don't recommend it as a way of life.
Not a permanent way, but we don't know what permanent's going to be. I think one sad part for me leaving my studio space is I'm leaving a community of, there were 18 artists there. It was very motivating when I'd go in there and, there were other artists to talk to, and we'd look at each other's work and engage on that level. But fortunately, when the shelter in place is no longer, when it's safe to be with other people, we had salon night once a month, and we'll continue that even though I'm not going to be a part of that community. But until then, you lose different communities of engagement and intellectual discourse, unless you are able to do things such as this. What's great about human nature is we're finding ways to stay in touch and communicate and engage. They're just not maybe ideal for humanity, but we're trying.
Well, I think this is not a bad alternative, and we are not going to be in this forever. One way or another, this will move through it. I think that there's a whole lot at stake that's not just about us personally, but nobody knows what it's going to look like in terms of where we are or what's going to happen with the economy and all of the uncertainties that portends, and also in a strange way opportunities to maybe recraft all of the things that we're up to really seems to me a time for a pretty serious rethink on a whole host of problems that I think we have brushed under the carpet for way too long. And one of the benefits of us all being forced to sit still for a while is the air is really clear. The clouds are very white, and all the other little critters are as happy as can be. So,
Barbara, the other folks that are very, very happy about this situation, I saw this online the other day, seismologists are thrilled because they're collecting data like crazy because of our activity being shut down. They can hear things in the earth that they couldn't hear because of all of our activity.
Right. And that's what I'm getting at. It's maybe there's an opportunity to decide what things are really important enough to bring back online with our lives, and that includes how we make art and what's important and where the values are. I know that to me the photographs are the icing on the cake. I am by nature just a day tripper. I just want to get out and be away, and it's so easy for me to just be in the middle of all of that and feel absolutely lost. And in the best way, I'm not there even when I'm there. And so taking the photograph is, and when I get it back to my studio, it is to me like the icing on the cake. If I get the shot, wonderful. If I don't, I still have the experience of the day.
Right.
Do you all feel that that art is an essential service, as we're calling things these days? I mean, are you as important as a grocery store clerk?
Wow.
I think, what's the cheesy line? We do not live by bread alone. And I know that beauty has fallen out of favor. Nonetheless, I believe that there not only beauty feeds us, it takes me to a place of feeling not isolated, not alone, not disconnected. That is when I feel the most connected, and it doesn't matter where I am. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm all alone, and 40 miles down some dirt road. I'm good, because what it does is it puts me in proper perspective to the world and to time, and basically, the more I disappear in that, the more connected I feel. And I think that beauty is a gateway to all of that, and that art has the capacity to bring us there. A poem has the capacity to touch that. A piece of literature has the capacity to touch that. And I think that's the way in which it unites us, even through this machinery, even through the printed page. When I read your work, Charles, I hear your voice. Even though you're not in the room. And one of my favorite pieces is hanging right on the wall. So,
yeah. I guess I would say that I'm very fortunate because I live with Barbara Michelman's, and I live with Karen Shimoda's on my walls, and I have Charles's writing, and I guess the art makes the groceries taste. I taste the groceries more because of living with there's all sorts of ways to live with other people. And I think visual art, first of all, it's an extraordinary object, but it's also the person that made the object. And so I'm not isolated. I'm not as isolated as I would be if I didn't have these wonderful things on my wall.
Right. Well, I follow a lot of artists on Instagram, and I'm looking at them, every day. So I have that, and I do have Barbara and Bobbie's work as well. But I think at this very moment, outside of artists and their world, I think the general society is just focused on survival. So the people on the front lines, the health professionals and the cashiers and the maintenance people who have to be out there, right now they really are, and I mean, personally, art is still important to me, but for many other people, those people need our attention right now. I don't expect to get any attention for my artwork at this moment. I think it's, like I said, more about survival and what's being done for survival. Of course, art, meaning the visual arts and music and writing, is about emotional survival. But I think many people are just trying to hope that things get better so we can all get back out there and get back to paying attention to the other things in life besides just healthcare and groceries and such.
Well, I think for those people, yes, but there's an awful lot of noise coming in from outside that acts as a distraction. You know, you turn on the news and it's all virus all the time. And at the moment, I'm sitting here and I'm okay. And the truth is, all I have is this moment. So to surrender just to that. And even for the frontline workers, they have the job to do, but to live in the fear doesn't really help anybody. You do what you can, you do the best you can. And there's also a reminder that not everybody who gets the virus has a particularly bad case. You know, right now there's a kind of shrill that I think it's important to know what we need to do to take care of ourselves as best we can, but to buy into the fear just becomes a kind of epidemic of its own. And I do think that my work takes me away from that and back into the moment, and that's that keeps me pretty happy, actually. You know,
one thinks of Terry Tempest Williams, Finding Beauty in a Broken World.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
She's been posting nice, appropriate photos on Twitter. She's on Twitter and she has different photos to remind us of the beauty of nature, to not forget that, and what is being done to nature through this current administration. But I guess I'm not talking about that people have more of a fear and so they're not thinking about the arts, but maybe there's just more of a focus on the survival. And once I can get my home situation organized, I do have I've done little art projects in the last month or so, but then I feel I can really dig into it, and that will nurture my interior. But living with a family and thinking about groceries and such, it's about survival right now.
Right.
Sure.
But following people such as Terry Tempest Williams and artists on Instagram and listening to poetry readings, we all feel that's very important. But are there people who maybe have put that aside and are not thinking about that right now, where they may have thought about it before this and they've just completely shut it off?
Well, you know, the fact of the matter is, I do think that the world that we inhabit is not necessarily a very large world. You know, and I think of artists as a tribe, and this is my tribe, you know, and I don't know about other tribes, but, you know, I'm not part of the football tribe. It doesn't hold a lot of interest for me. And so this is what feeds me. And I hope my work feeds some other people along the way, that they get some value out of it. But I know when I see you guys work, and I, you know, and I've actually been spending a fair amount of time reading, you know, when I get into a book, it takes me someplace. It takes me to another century. I mean, I do think that those are the gifts that art and literature offer us, as a way to be in more than one world, and right. Be perfectly content with it. You know?
And in a perverse way, you know, I've been reading, because I think a lot of people have been talking about, they've been reading to kind of distract them from what's going on in the world and so forth. And I find myself being drawn to books like, I just finished a book called The Mosquito, and it's a nonfiction, and it's the mosquito is our deadliest predator. It's taken out half of the human beings that have lived on the planet. And somehow reading that kind of calibrates for me that this is horrible and this is changing our lives, but this has been going on since human beings have been on the planet, and we've kind of lived in a, living in America in the 20th and 21st centuries. Many of us have been kind of shielded from those sorts of things, and I think certainly with modern medicine and alike, we felt kind of maybe invincible or that we were in control. And reading something like The Mosquito, reading that book and the history of the world through that lens has helped me kind of cope with what's going on right now.
I think you're right. We built a set of expectations for our lives collectively that is different than what has been historically the way people have lived. People expected children to die along the way, to lose children in early age, to lose children at childbirth. That was the common story. It stopped being the common story for the most part in this country over the last, 7,500 years. We've shrunk our families. We have this expectation that we're going to live to old age without anything really interfering. But you're absolutely right. In a sense, this period has been an anomaly in history.
Right,
and,
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we can look forward to more of this. With climate change, pandemics will have more and more of them.
That's right.
I guess I wanted to, I'm sorry, Charles, you started.
Would you think there'll be any kind of new art coming out of this, like a whole new art form, if you want to, back for a better word, or a movement?
Oh boy, I'm not that smart. I don't know. I don't know. I think, you know what? I think young people, young artists, there'll be some very, very smart people that will make very, very smart art that sort of addresses our conundrum of pandemics and climate catastrophe and so forth. Yes.
Right. I went to the Whitney Biennial in September, and I looked at all the art there and realized that a lot of it was very social, very activist, very political, and I think that it'll just build on that. I mean, those were the artists in the Whitney Biennial are supposed to be, some of the leading artists in this country. And that's what I was seeing. So I think it'll just grow from there. A lot of calls for art right now for shows that will be coming up, which will probably be online. A lot of them have the theme of what's happening right now, politically, socially, economically, and with the environment and health-wise. So yes, but like Bobbie said, maybe it's younger artists coming up who will carry that torch.
And clearly, like I think of the South African artist William Kentridge, and certainly I'm certain that he will do something about the pandemic. So there are artists that are sort of geared towards commenting on the here and now in a way that will bring us a new language. Charles, to answer your question, yeah.
And and there's no reason to think that the leading edge of this would necessarily come out of this country, because there are all these other nations right now that are also coping with it, and there's a lot of young artists emerging as those nations are emerging. So it'd be interesting to see, on a global scale, what some of that work looks like. Who knows what, some of the most interesting work I've seen recently was at a big photo exposition in San Francisco with some of the work coming out of China. Some amazing photography coming out of there. And also, very touching in many ways and accomplished. So, I think we have to look beyond our borders. What a novel thought.
Yeah. Well, this April is Poetry Month, National Poetry Month. So I've been reading a lot of poetry because I sort of view what I'm doing as visual poetry.
Right.
And the three poets that I've been reading this month, one is South Korea. One is a book of contemporary South Korean poets. Another one was Wong May, who she lives in Ireland, but and then the third one was a Japanese poet. So they're saying, yes, they're saying things, even their poetry may be a few years old or older than that, but they're saying things that are relevant to what we're going through right now. So not reading Mosquito, but those books of poetry are sort of putting things in perspective for me.
Right.
And they're from people who are not necessarily living here. It's more of a global thought.
Right, and I find that artists from other parts of the world have a different cut at things, and it kind of massages my brain to rethink, the sort of one view, one collective view that we tend to have here, and I think that's a good thing.
Charles, I really enjoyed the podcast that you had with the poet laureates.
Me too.
And many of them, one of them was writing a poem a day about COVID.
Yeah, Kim Stafford.
Yeah.
Kim, yeah. And I was really struck by how they were really in tune with what was going on. And I thought the poems were quite marvelous. I really loved the one he was talking about, being in school again and waiting in the rain for a bus, and give me all that. Let me stand on a bus and be next to other people and so forth and so on. It was quite lovely, quite lovely.
Yeah, it's been fun to do this kind of thing and get smart, attractive together, and just listen to them talk. And that was a really good session with those four.
It was.
Bob Wrigley in the other first one, he's been doing some very recent work directly related to COVID, and he was talking about how it's for a poet, and obviously for any artist, like people like you, it takes so long for something to come out. Like you'll create something and it might be a year or 2 years before it's ever ready for public consumption in a gallery, or say if you're publishing a book. So
Yes.
You know that pretty well, right, Barbara?
Yes, we do.
There's another aspect. I taught art for 31 years, and I'm deeply concerned about at least in the short run, what happens to education, to all of undergraduate education, teaching studio, which is such a social, such a wonderful pressing of the flesh, and being with other young artists and mingling and putting your work up, and it's a marvelous thing to be a part of. And talking to my friends and colleagues that are still teaching, some of them are concerned that they're teaching at small colleges, and they're really concerned that whether the college will even survive to have an incoming class, and so forth and so on. So the repercussions are immense. But I just wanted to mention that it's not just about us making art, but it's about the tradition of being together and mentoring upcoming generations and so forth and so on. And some perhaps, I don't know, Charles, writing, I mean, what do you think? I mean, yeah, you can do it online, but is it that different from a studio class?
I'm not sure exactly if I follow that, but you're talking about the education aspect. Yeah, I mean, so many people are in our lives. All the poets that I all had on before, and even my wife, they're professors, and they're worried about the nature of education and what's going to happen with online classes and universities folding. And is it different for writing? Yeah, I would expect something where, if independent bookstores can't, keep their doors open.
Right.
They were starting to actually make a little bit of a resurgence and a comeback, it seemed, and now this could really affect a whole lot of them. I mean, from Powell's books on down.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah, where are we gonna get our words in front of readers? Will it only be online? Let's hope not.
Right.
I think that there's going to be a pent-up demand for social interaction when all of this is over. I don't know what shapes they're going to take yet, but we are by nature social creatures, and people like to gather. What all those gatherings are going to look like are hard to say just yet, and what's going to sort of surface out of after what's going to be left behind and what's going to emerge out of this is hard to predict yet. I don't know if you're familiar. I think it was Barbara Tuchman's book where she wrote about the plague in the 14th century. Yeah, and basically the plague came through, and it came through in waves and wiped out the whole hierarchy, and out of that emerged a whole new social class because so many people died from the plague. Well, it was very interesting that pandemic recast what happened and actually gave birth to the Renaissance, which I thought was because it wiped out the hierarchy. So who knows? Who knows what's going to be left and what's going to fall away? It's hard to say yet.
Well, I know that you guys could probably go on all night for this. We'll try and wrap it up here. Thanks so much for doing this and sharing your thoughts and ideas, and it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Charles.
Yeah, great to see you. I haven't seen, I see Barbara because we live in the same town, but I haven't seen Charles for years, and Bobbie, I haven't seen you for a few years. So
Yeah.
Well,
although I know about you because Barbara tells me about both of you, so she keeps me informed.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no! Just disregard anything Barbara tells you about it.
Yeah, it was all bad. It was all bad.
Every word. and thank you for putting this together, Charles.
Yes, thank you.
Well, look forward to seeing the art that you guys create and does come out of it. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Charles.
good luck with your
You're
show,
welcome.
Bobbie. I hope it
Thank you. Thank you
is
very much.
a real show.
I hope so
People
too.
can Go and see.
6 feet apart, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hang
Is that the
6
name of the
feet
show?
apart.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.